There is a common saying you might hear a few times if you're trying to break into the film industry, and I think it goes something like this. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Of course, I'm not trying to break into the film industry, but I do know that the same thing can go for ghosts. Just because you watch a lot of horror movies doesn't mean that you're going to see some scary lady from the 1800s. If you have a ghostly encounter, it's a lot more likely that you'll see somebody who died recently, especially if it was someone you cared for deeply. That's not just a theory I have either. A survey completed in 1971 showed that nearly half the widows in Wales and England reported seeing their dead spouses. Another study done in 2011 reviewed hundreds of ghostly experiences and found that a huge portion of them occurred during grieving periods. So when someone dies, it's a traumatic experience. That's kind of obvious, but when we suffer trauma, our brains tend to try and protect us by making things better. So sometimes, tragedy can cause people to experience ghostly apparitions. That doesn't mean that it's always a negative or scary experience, but what about the times when it is? Why do they seem so common? It comes down to 5 reasons that I've curated just for you guys. Mental susceptibility, instinct, insanity, bad vibes, and my personal favorite, bread. Stick around to the end to find out why bread is the source of a lot of ghostly encounters. I'm saving the best for last. Mental susceptibility. The human mind is super susceptible to suggestion. You might remember an episode of the YouTube series Mindfield hosted by Vsauce's Michael Stevens. In the episode, they tested how people reacted to a joke that made absolutely no sense. I personally thought it was pretty funny, but nobody else seemed to think it was very funny and they didn't laugh. But then, they hired actors to laugh at another nonsense joke, and suddenly, the subjects started laughing along with the crowd. That's why so many shows have laugh tracks, or why Netflix stand-up specials aren't filmed in a room full of crickets, they're filmed in front of a live audience. Laughter helps contribute to how funny something is. We are socially and mentally susceptible to external influences. But laughter isn't the only suggestion our brain is open to. The University of London's psychology department carried out a study in 2014 that had students watch a video of a fake psychic bending a key with a sleight of hand trick. He then set the key down. Half the participants saw a video where the psychic said, "If you look closely, you'll see that it's still bending even after I set it down." The other half saw a video where the psychic didn't say anything about the key once it was set down. When both groups were asked what they saw the key do, 40% of people in the survey said that they saw the key continuing to bend of its own accord. But it can get even creepier. There was a study done by researchers at the University of Illinois at Springfield that tested this out. They gave 2 groups a tour of an old shutdown theater. The control group was given a normal tour, history of the building and stuff like that. The second group, however, was told that the building was being investigated for a haunting. Other than that one piece of information, the tour was exactly the same, from location to what was said about the history of the building. But this second group, the haunted one, was way more likely to say that they'd experienced either strong emotions or strange occurrences during the tour. Interestingly enough, evolutionary psychologists think that they have a reason for this kind of stuff. See, humans love to take social cues and guess information about their environment. Take the Vsauce laughing thing, for example. But this can extend beyond just human interactions. One way our brain does this is by seeing things that aren't really there. It's a phenomenon called pareidolia. Pareidolia, or pareidolia, I'm not really good at pronouncing Latin words, is the phenomenon of seeing things that aren't there, like seeing a squirrel in a sink faucet, or a Mother Mary in a grilled cheese sandwich that sold for $28,000 on eBay in 2004. I wish I'd had that grilled cheese sandwich. This recognizing patterns when there are none there serves a purpose though. It's the brain's way of saying better safe than sorry. For example, let's say you're walking along through the plains of North America during the Ice Age when you hear something creepy rustling in the grass behind you. It's probably nothing, right? Better just to ignore it, not expend any extra energy. Wrong. It's a lion. It jumps out, it eats your face. Okay, let's try this again. Let's reset. You hear something creepy as you're walking along through the plains and immediately go into flight or fight mode. You're freaking out, your heart is racing. Well, if it ends up being nothing, it's no big deal. Your friends back home might look at you weird when you tell them about the grass ghost, but you're alive. And if it does end up being a lion, you have a much better chance of escaping, because you were prepared. You were in fight or flight mode, and you were afraid and ready to react. This is called apophenia, the tendency to mistakenly perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. A survival instinct that causes us to see monsters and shadows, even when the monsters have been long dead for thousands of years because we killed them to death with spears and clubs. So, because in modern times we've escaped the need to, well, escape, there's not a lot of situations where you'll have to use this evolutionary advantage. At least, I can't remember the last time I had to run from a lion. But apophenia continues to haunt us, literally. For example, humans like being somewhere where they can see their surroundings and be safe and sheltered from danger. In the present day, houses have become a lot more efficient at keeping in the temperature, so we have more windows, and they keep getting bigger. And since it takes less power to make more light, houses come with more lights. But old houses didn't have these luxuries. They weren't as efficient, so it was harder to see the outside world, and harder to feel safe when there are shadows lurking in every corner. Now, imagine you're sitting in your grandma's house, watching a movie with the fam, and you have to use the bathroom. You look down the hallway, and there's only one light, and no windows to see the outside world or let in the moon's light. Well, you tell me, are you more afraid at that house, or the one with all the lights and windows? Suddenly, you see something moving and creating a vaguely human shadow. You might say that you saw a person. Why not a lion, a tiger, or a bear? That's because you're way more likely to be killed by a person than a bear. That's why the antagonists of horror movies are usually human, and why the apex predators that haunt our dreams are other humans. Of course, it turns out that that strange shape was just a cat that you forgot your grandma adopted, but now you definitely have to use the bathroom. Insanity and other strange brain glitches. Have you ever noticed that people who say that they see a lot of ghosts can often be a little bit on the wacky side? You're not alone in thinking that. I thought I was just being mean at first, but as it turns out, there's a good reason for thinking this. A lot of people who say that they hear and see things all the time and believe that they're ghosts end up manifesting conditions like schizophrenia later in life. But you don't necessarily have to be wacky to see a ghost or two. So let me explain. When you're falling asleep, your muscles relax so you can go into REM sleep without kicking a wall because you had a dream about being chased by your 8th grade teacher while she throws missing homework assignments at you. Sometimes it doesn't work and you do end up kicking the wall, which is all well and good. You don't really know why you kicked the wall because you probably don't remember the creepy dream, nor do you want to. Sometimes it doesn't work and it can be really bad. See, your brain has to sync up with your muscles as it's relaxing, but sometimes if it doesn't and you're going in and out of REM sleep, you might be kind of awake and completely conscious so you can't move, that you're paralyzed. Naturally, you freak out, and your brain starts going on high alert mode. So suddenly, if a dark figure appears in your doorway and it only looks vaguely humanoid, you might be freaked out. This is a phenomenon known as sleep paralysis, and although we know we get paralyzed because of the disconnect between the muscles and the brain and going in and out of REM sleep, we don't know why a dark figure suddenly appears, whether it be humanoid or monster. A lot of people think that it's just the brain overreacting to a shadow, while others think that it's because you're trying to move and your brain is projecting where your body should be because you told your leg to go over there and it's not. So it's kind of like a creepy ghost image, but that one doesn't really hold as much weight with most people. Some people think that it's the physical embodiment of your stresses and anxieties. This one makes a lot of sense to me because the 3 times in a night that I experienced sleep paralysis, I was really stressed. As it turns out, you're more likely to experience it in your teenage years, and when I was a sophomore in high school, I had exams the next week, and I experienced sleep paralysis. The demon showed up. It happened 3 times in a night. I told him to fuck off. He didn't listen, but I wasn't really too concerned. I just wanted to be able to move. Ever since that night, I decided I would not care about exams anymore. It was too stressful. I couldn't deal with it. But there's another theory, and this one is my personal favorite. The theory goes something like this. The demons that appear when we're experiencing sleep paralysis are actually the demons that haunt our everyday lives, and they only show their true form once they think we're asleep. And these are cats, because cats are freaking creepy. Bad vibes. Sometimes, our mind isn't the one playing tricks on us. Our body is. The story of British engineer Vic Tandy, his name would be way better if it was Tick Tandy. Trust me, it's not. I would totally tell you if it was. Anyway, British engineer Vic Tandy is the perfect example. See, Vic had been hired by a medical supply company to do some work in one of their research labs, when suddenly a strange feeling came over him. At the same time, he felt an overwhelming sense of doom and despair. And while he was walking around trying to calm his nerves, I would totally do the same thing if I suddenly felt doom and despair, which is why I take so many walks. So he's walking around, and he sees something out of the corner of his eye. It's a strange, gray being, and he turns to look at it. It's gone. It's disappeared. So he'd been told the site might have been haunted by his colleagues, but he was skeptical. After all, he's a world-renowned engineer. So he looks around, he does some digging, and he finds out that one of the fans in the room was vibrating at a frequency of 18.9 hertz. the same frequency that our eyeballs vibrate. You don't notice it because your brain compensates for it, but these kind of vibrations can be very powerful. They're called infrasound frequencies, and they can mess with your body in weird ways, like making your organs shake, which can cause hyperventilation and therefore that fear feeling. Now, a note to this, if you're an anti-masker, getting breathed on can have similar effects, especially if you get the virus, so don't discount the possibility that corona is actually demons infecting your lungs. It could be ghosts. And finally, bread. Bread is one of the most interesting foods to ever grace the human taste bud, mostly because it's the only food some people have ever tasted. I'd hate to be a peasant, or some kid in Africa. It'd be tragic. But the bread ghost theory is even more interesting. It's based on another theory that says that mold can mess with your mind. Some students at Clarkson University started testing out this theory in old buildings that were supposedly haunted. They ended up finding was that there was a highly abnormal number of spores in the air of these buildings. Spores that could potentially have similar effects to psilocybin, a group of mushrooms that causes wacky visuals and other psychedelic experiences. It's also known as shrooms if you talk to the kiddos. Ergot fungus is another such microbe. It's one that is known to secrete LSD, which is probably the most famous hallucinogen in the entire world. There's a theory among some historians that some bread infected with ergot was eaten by some of the citizens of Salem in the 1600s, which led to what some described as demonic possession. And so, for the crime of eating bread, 19 people were hung, 5 people died in jail, and 1 person was squished. It's not very cool of you, Salem witch trials. It's not very cool at all. There's even a theory that says moldy books could have been the source of some of the human mind's best works of verbal art. In other words, crazy books can make even more crazy books. Really, really good crazy books. Because we all know that only crazy people can be successful. So, in conclusion, there are a lot of reasons why we might see ghosts. Some of them crazy, some of them not so crazy. Some of them are expected, and some of them are very surprising. When it comes down to it, I still don't believe in ghosts. But one day, I might be proven wrong. So let me know in the comments if you've ever experienced any crazy ghost stories. Let me know if you like this format of video, one that's more informative. Don't forget to smash that like button. The YouTube algorithm loves it when I smash the like button, and I know it loves it when you smash the like button too. It'll recommend my videos to more people, and that would be awesome. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time.